Hi, welcome to Marvelous Mysteries, the podcast. I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Jaden.
And today we're going to be doing some sort of unsolved mystery for you guys. We both prepared something different that I'm not really sure what Jaden has or any theme. We didn't choose any theme this week, so. First we're going to do some getting to know you because that really helps us and it's fun. So the first question I found is, what are your hobbies and how did you get into them? Or just one maybe, or whatever you want to share.
Not me, go first, you.
You can go first.
Okay. I feel like I have a few, like I do art and writing and guitar the most, I feel like, are like the main three that I usually do. I guess, so I actually do like guitar quite a bit, I just haven't been doing it as of late, as much as I usually do. But I got into it, I don't really know how. It was like right before I started my senior year of high school, and I was like, I want to learn how to play guitar, so I just sat down and started teaching myself, but, I mean, I like it, so.
That's cool. I don't really have very many. I like reading, but, like, I just learned how to read, I guess, and that's how I got into it. But, like, I really got into it mostly, like, when, I don't know if it was in 2nd or 3rd grade I started reading those, like, American and Michigan Chiller books. They read them to us in school, and so I started reading those, and I would go to the store, buy 2. My parents would let me get 2, and I'd read both of them that day. And so that's when I became, like, really into reading ever since then. But I also really like cooking, and I got into that because I was, like, kind of forced to cook because because eating out is expensive, and, yeah, and, like, if it's, like, if my husband cooks, then, like, he's, like, much less likely to, like, want to do stuff right after work, and then I just found it very soothing to come home from work and then start just, like, cooking and, like, doing stuff, because I'm always, like, starving when I get home, so.
I need to cook more. I don't do it often, as much as I should. Mm-hmm. Like, every now and then I'll make some fried tofu and some rice and, like, with some veggies and a really sad sauce, and I'm like, there's my stir fry. It happens, like, once every 2 months.
I have to do it for, like, every dinner, unless I
do
like,
every day.
Yeah, pretty much. Unless we like take a week off, or like right now we have lots of like leftovers and stuff like that, so I don't have to do so much besides microwave. What is your go-to guilty pleasure?
I don't know. I feel like just sweets in general. Like, not really a specific one. I used to, like, when I was a little kid, I used to, like, I don't understand how, just, like, constantly eat sweets and sugar and stuff. And, like, I hit middle school, and I remember this distinctively because I was at a friend's birthday party. I had one M&M, and I was like, I feel sick. So, about that time, I can't really have sweets as much as I used to. But, like, I probably just, like, I really like Airheads. At work, they're right across me, so every day I look at them, I'm like, oh, I just want an Airhead.
I guess any food. I like any food. I don't have very many that I feel like super like guilty or secretive about, but
yeah.
It used to be like true crime and murder and like creepy things like that. But I feel less and less embarrassed about it every day because so many people are interested in it. Mm-hmm. But I guess it's mostly like explaining to people that aren't into it, like.
Yeah, I feel like. Yeah, I feel like you try to explain to people, they're like, it sounds, you sometimes can sound like a little crazy.
Yeah, when you're like, I really love like serial killers and learning
like
all about them. Yeah, like when you're like, oh, I watch every true crime thing or like whatever. People are like, or like when I like watch TV, I'm like, I'm watching this and it's about these kids that are taken at birth and stuff. It's like, oh,
okay.
Okay, what's your favorite way to spend your day off? If you could describe your perfect, like, day off or whatever. It doesn't have to be, like, a trip or something. Just, like.
I feel like, cleaning probably would be, how it would begin the day. Would be cleaning, like, my room or something. But then, like, working out. Be able to bake something, because I really like baking. Maybe I should have said that for the first, but it's fine. I really like baking. That, probably writing. And then I really don't know what I do in a day that I have off. I had today off and I literally did nothing. I went to Walmart and bought 2 boxes.
I probably would say I would like to go get coffee in the morning and my breakfast. And I like grocery shopping, especially when I'm not like in a rush or it's not stressful. So I'd probably go grocery shopping, and I'd probably like watch TV, like a show I really like, and TV. Depending on the time of the year, also changes my mood. So like in fall, I definitely want to be like watching TV with like coffee and cozy, but like in the summer, I would want to be outside, kind of. And I'd read probably and like just chill. What's an activity that would instantly calm you? And instantly calming.
I don't know. If you have one, you can go first. I really don't know what calms me.
I mean, obviously, like taking a bath is calming.
Oh, really? I hate baths. I just sweat so much that maybe that's TMI, but like
I like it super warm, like that it's burning, and it's just super nice.
Scalding hot.
I like it very
boiling.
hot. Yeah. And my cat will like yell at me while I'm in the bath. Yeah, in the bath. She like really freaks out. I think she's nervous that I'm in there and she's really interested. But I like baths. Or like just like I don't know. I've done like yoga a couple times, like when I actually go to the studio. That's calming and stuff. This is nice. But do you have anything?
No, I feel like well, sometimes cleaning. I feel like either just like I don't know, sitting down and writing, or baking. Literally any of my hobbies when I'm not feeling like rushed or like under pressure or anything like that would probably be calming to me.
And then the last one I have is, what's one thing that could instantly make your day better? Something, whatever you want.
I don't know. Like, I don't know.
I would say most of mine are probably like some sort of surprise. Like either I get a gift.
That's what I was going to say too. But
I would be surprised with food or a cookie or something like that. Like, I have some, like, I the other day, like, I was like, I asked my husband, I was like, can we get egg rolls from the store? And he was like, sure. And I was, like, really excited about that. And my whole day was, like, so much better for some reason about egg rolls. But
yeah, I guess mine would be some kind of gift as well. Like, it doesn't have to be anything, like, spectacular, right?
Yeah.
Like, someone could literally give me, like, a cool-looking pen. Be like, oh my god, like, this is amazing.
Pen. I do love pens, though. Okay. So do you want to go first with our mysteries, or do you want me to go first?
I guess I don't care. Mine's really quite long. I think, like, I'll try to get through it as quick as I can without making it confusing. I'm gonna be honest. I read this thing so many parts, so many times over and over again, and I still don't really know what it's about. So I'm gonna be equally as surprised as you. I couldn't remember.
Did
anything.
I go first last week, or did you?
I think you might have.
Okay, so you can go first then. We'll just do it by that.
Okay. So let's see here. So mine is an unsolved mystery, and this one also, like last week's, takes place in, like, Victorian ages. I don't know. Maybe I'll do. I like reading these type of ones, like the ones that happen like back in the day. I don't know if they're interesting. Anyways,
they're more creepy, so for some reason.
Yeah, I think because like they just didn't have as much like
DNA and like
like tools and things that we have now. I don't know. Anyways, so mine is called the Euston Square Mystery. I think that's how you say it, Euston. So the lodging houses of Victoria, London. This is about a lodging house, is what I meant to say. But, this is... Sorry, I'm trying to find it. So in 1879 is when the body first appeared of an elderly woman showed up in the coal cellar of 4 Euston Square, in Bloomsbury, London. So like I said, that must be the name. Sorry, I'm trying to, like I said, I don't remember anything that I read. So I think Euston Square is the name of the lodging house, or boarding house, whatever. So, sorry, I'm scrolling down to where I highlighted things. Okay, so, Severin Bastendorf, I think that's how you say it, was the owner of the Euston house, or lodging, whatever we call it. And he was born in Grand Duchy. Did I say it? Duchy?
I guess.
No, I don't think it's Duchy. It's probably Duchy. Grand Duchy of Luxembourg in 1845. He moved to Paris in 1860, but then when the Franco-Prussian War ignited in 1870, he moved to Britain and settled in London. There he married Mary Pierce, who was a native Londoner in 1872, and that's when they first purchased the Euston Square house in 1876. Sorry, these are all very scattered. And in 1879, there was also a large population of German immigrants and stuff like that. So a lot of people would come and stay in houses at the time.
Okay.
Just if people had extra rooms in their house, then they would sometimes let people stay. So I think. Sorry, this is so weird. So I'm pretty sure Mary died at some point. Maybe she didn't. I lied. Mary's alive, I think.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry. Like, how they wrote this, because I'm looking off the article, and then, for they who don't know.
Yeah.
I'm looking off the article, and I was, highlighting, taking notes on certain parts, but, I don't know. Anyways, so she's not dead. She's alive. Mary, at the time, was alive. So, the Bassendorf household was like any other lodging house, and it was used, like I said, for housing immigrants and things if need be. Now, in the morning on the 9th of May, as Collier arrived to deliver the house's allocation of fuel, that's when things kind of got weird. So, on May 9th, 15-year-old William Stroham, I think that's how you say it, the house's local errand boy, he was tasked out with digging the coal from the cellar to clean it out and prepare it for use if a new lodger came in. And the cellar is obviously beneath the house, like a basement, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So as he dug, he came across a body, or a human foot, part of a body, human foot, and he raced around to tell the Joseph Bassendorf that he found a foot, and he was like, "Oh, you're talking nonsense, you're kind of crazy." And then he called over Albert Bassendorf to accompany the boy back to the cellar, and then that's when they were like, "Oh, he's telling the truth, he found a foot." So, and then they also found, they started digging through it, and they found a half badly decomposed body of a human amongst the coal. And then they sent William out to find a police officer, and while Joseph went upstairs to find Mary Bassendorf, who is alive, as we have noted, to try and explain what they found or anything like that. So, after news kind of traveled, they brought the police officer and everything like that. They went and got the doctor. So Dr. Henry Davis arrived, and he began observing the body. He found that it had been covered in oilcloth. It had decomposed considerably, suggesting it had been in the cellar for some time, possibly even several years. It had one missing foot, and a cord had been wrapped around its neck at least twice. And though the decay has destroyed a lot of the clothing, it was clear by the lace found and everything that it was a woman. But that's all that could be determined. They couldn't tell what else it was. And then they eventually moved the body to St. Pancras Hospital for a full inspection. So, once it was in the morgue, the doctor did a full examination of the body. So the clothing had been entirely disintegrated, and like I said, they were able to figure out that it was a woman dressed in an elaborate black lace and silk dress adorned with a fancy silk cloak. So I'm guessing that means she was probably of higher class, or maybe not, I guess. But I would think since it's silk and everything.
Yeah, that's fancy.
Well, it says fancy silk cloak, so I'm assuming she was a fancy lady. But there were no marks on the head to speak of, and no signs of violence on the body aside from the cord tied around the neck, which appeared to be further up below the jaw, which is a trait that's mostly found like for a hanging victim rather than a murder victim. And there was little skin to speak of, but there were still small patches of bright auburn hair. So, and there are only a few teeth remained from the upper and lower jaw. So from the state of the teeth, they were able to estimate the woman probably was around 55 to 60 years old, up until her death.
Okay.
And then she was around probably about 5 foot tall. Feet tall? Foot tall.
It's the 1 foot. 5 foot, because she was missing a foot. Haha.
I get it. That's
yeah.
bad joke. Sorry. I cannot be lost. So yeah, she was around 5 feet tall, and had a distinctive curve in her spine, and both her arms and legs had become detached, though this was, like, they chalked it up to rather decay rather than violence. That's why they were detached and everything. And then they concluded that she had probably been dead at least a year and possibly up to 3 years. So, like, they're all kind of suspicious and worried about why this body hasn't been found for at least 12 months, possibly more. And then, find my notes. Okay. So, after that, a man named Inspector Charles Hagen, he decided to kind of look into everything and question the Bassendorf family. So the residents appeared to have no clues as to the identification of the body, and they kind of made a theory that maybe it was just like a drunk who had fallen into the cellar from the street before they had arrived. Though that kind of is an unlikely theory since there are bars at street level, so it'd be kind of hard to like fall into someone's cellar.
Right.
And then Hagen kind of also said that, like, well, maybe, sorry, I'm trying to, I really should have read this better, or just remembered. Like I said, I reread it many times. Anyways, so Hagen went down to the cellar, and he eventually came across a wicker basket tray containing small items, including an eyeglass. The previous owner of the house, Mr. Milnes, was contacted and questioned, though it led to nowhere. Milnes was a sculptor and had been in the habit of entertaining life models from time to time, so they thought that maybe the lady found was a model of his. Though, because of her age, I think they kind of, like, pushed it aside since he was on the older side, so, like, okay, maybe that's not
Yeah, and that was really old for that time.
Yeah, and so they kind of... not now. No
Not
offense
now.
to anybody.
Not now, but back then. That
Back
was
then,
old.
yeah. So that guy was kind of, after questioning him or anything, that they no longer suspected the old owner. And then a new piece of information came when, upon reading the press report on the mystery in their home in Devon, William and Susan Dobbs contacted the police to inquire about their daughter, Hannah, who they had not seen in 6 months, and who they knew had been in the service of and had deeper connections with the Bassendorfs. So, a little background information on Hannah Dobbs. So, she was the daughter of William and Susan Dobbs, born in Barnstaple, Devon in 1855. Her family moved to the farm on the outskirts of town shortly after her birth, and at the age of 16, she boarded a train and headed for a nearby town of Bideford, and found work there as a dairymaid, and quickly met a man who she became involved with and engaged to. In 1873, when she was 18, she grew tired of her life in North Devon and decided to travel further afield and boarded a train to London. She took lodgings in less than the stellar district of South London, and she also took a position in the Surrey town of Redhill, 20 miles to the South City, after she couldn't find anything in South London, really. Where? Oh, yeah, okay, here it is. So she worked there for full 50 months in Redhill, before she was fired because she stole a piece of silk and 13 pounds, which is about the equivalent to a year's wage for someone in her position.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
so that's a lot of money.
And she was a thief. Anyways.
Oh, wow. Harsh.
So, in November 1878, Hannah Dobbs is now fully established in London, visited her home in Devon. And this is also kind of around the time where she would... I think this is around the time when she first kind of started working for the Bassendorfs, or at least found out about them. Yeah, so, she told her parents she'd be visiting Germany, which is why they weren't really concerned about where she was for those 6 months until things kind of got weird. And then their daughter, they found out after they tried to contact her, after, they found the body and everything like that, they found that she wasn't in Germany, but actually living in London.
Mm-hmm.
And she was serving time in prison for petty theft. So there's a little background on her. I feel like, am I explaining this well? Okay. I was like, there's a lot of information that I'm trying to break down so this isn't super long.
It's fine. There's no worry.
So the inquest for the body found in Euston Square begun on May 16th, 1879. Severin Bassendorf was the first to begin the peculiar tales of life behind the walls. I guess that's why he named it. I don't know.
What is it?
It says Severin Bassendorf was the first to begin the peculiar tales of life behind the walls of Euston Square.
Is this a book?
No, it's just I guess what they call it. It's not a book or anything. I think it's kind of he started inquiring things that might have happened there.
Is this his little report or tale or something?
Yeah, it's his own tale.
Okay.
In his own head. He's just this is what I call it.
Okay, I gotcha.
So he was told the inquiry that over the previous 3 years, about 20 or so lodgers had come and gone and painted a picture of turning transient household, though he was quick to confirm that they were all a genteel lot of people. So he told of how the cellar had never been locked, and had rarely, if ever, been cleared out fully before. And it was only being cleared out on the 9th to make room for the incoming lodger, Mr. Brooks, who had requested the use of the cellar for his fuel. And after this, he relayed a story to the court that most likely would have found relatively shocking at best. So this is the Bassendorf guy, I think, quoting this. So there's a quote by him. He says, "I went into the cellar about Christmas and picked up a bone, which I thought was a sheep's bone, and it had some flesh on it. I took it into the kitchen and showed it to my wife, saying, 'What a wasteful girl that servant must be, throwing away half a leg of mutton, for that is what I took it for.' I went and threw the particular bone back again into the cellar. I'm not a judge of human bones."
I thought you were gonna say he ate it.
No.
I was nervous about that.
He's like,
gosh.
Food, leftovers. So one of the house's current maidservants told a similar story to the court as well, that 2 weeks prior to the body being found, she had come across a bone that she had taken to show Miss Bassendorf, and that she thought the bone was a human foot, but Miss Bassendorf was quick to discard this line of thought and told her not to be so silly, and that it must have come from wild boar that the family had recently eaten. So the maidservant just returned it to the cellar and simply tossed it back, and a few days later she found another bone about the size of her finger, but rather than show Miss Bassendorf, she just tossed it aside again, or into the house garbage. So,
well, I'm glad no one's eating this.
Yeah. So, the first Dr. Davis, it was kind of his turn to talk in court and stuff like that and try to give light into the case and everything. So he said the body might have been there 3 years or more than 3 years, or it may have been put but 1 year. Now that I read that out loud, that's really not that helpful whatsoever, I feel like. He's like, it could be 3 years or more than that, or just maybe 1 year.
Less. It could be more than 3 years, less than 3 years, or exactly 3 years. Those are all the options.
So anyways, the confusion around the date of the death was further placed into the mire when at the final inspection carried out by Dr. Davis, this time joined by a police surgeon named Dr. Jackins. Why does that sound right to me? Anyways, Davis reiterated that he believed the body had been placed in the cellar 3 to 4 years prior, and the Jackins guy was saying that maybe it was more recent. So in conclusion, the doctors theorized that maybe the body had been dumped in the cellar during the 6 months between ownership of the house by Mr. Milnes and the Bassendorfs, where it lay vacant. So, let's scroll a bit further. So, Inspector Hagen kind of came with another breakthrough. He theorized that the lady, who had been dressed in fine silks and elaborate lace, who was the victim, would not have been the type to have not looked after herself, as she had so many missing teeth, and he was like, I don't think she would just, like, let her teeth, be like that if she was wearing such nice clothes. So he thought that maybe there had been, like, appointments for dentistry, so a message was sent to dentist offices throughout the local districts of St. Pancras, Bloomsbury, Somerstown, and Kentish Town, and remarkably, after just a few days, a dentist working nearby to Euston Square contacted police concerning a patient he had seen 2 years prior, and they couldn't find that this patient had come to see him to inquire about getting a set of denture made, and the dentist had created a cast of the lady's mouth, and after she had come and gotten her, what was that called, like a cast made, I guess, for her teeth, she never returned. So Hagen took the cast, and it fit perfectly along the jaw of the body found in Euston Square. So, Hagen began scouring the local pawn shops for items that maybe have a connection to the body, and he eventually came to meet a man named Edward Hacker, and Edward had been to see the police on a hunch that the body may have been that of his estranged sister, because he hadn't heard from her over 2 years. He went with the police to identify the body, review the body, and from the clothing, the patches of hair, and everything like that, he identified it as his sister Matilda Hacker. So, now we move on to Matilda Hacker. Don't worry, we're only like a little less than halfway through. Oh my gosh. Okay, I should have chosen a shorter article for this. I don't know why I didn't, because today I'm like, my brain's so out of it. Anyways, Matilda Hacker was born in 1811 in Canterbury. She was the daughter of John Hacker, a builder and stone engraver, and his wife Mary. And her father was well known in the community as a talented stonemason. So she also had her brother Edward, and she also had a younger sister, 3 years her junior, named Amelia. So troubles came for Matilda after the death of her beloved sister in 1871. She became more and more reclusive and began refusing to pay property rates, despite clearly having the means to do so. So she began to neglect her role as a landlady, and was forced to seek help from her brother, who had recently moved to Camden in London to work as an artist. She also spent a short time in Westgate Prison for refusing to pay her debts. And then rather than learn her lesson, she instead devised new ways to avoid her charges by moving around various rented properties in Canterbury, Brighton, and London, under false names in an effort to avoid detection of the authorities. Which, you do you, but you probably shouldn't run away from the cops. And then she eventually moved to London for good in 1875 under the name of Miss Bell. Though she had no previous references to rent, she found that her money and educated background meant she could often pass in reasonable lodgings without much suspicion. And despite her efforts, police had managed to catch up with her in London. She eventually cleared her debts by selling jewelry. Okay, so in 1877, she finally moved to 4 Euston Square under the name of Miss Ewish, I think that's how you say it.
Okay.
And after years of living there, that was kind of obviously when she croaked. That made this rude way of saying it. But she died there. So I'm trying to find. Okay. So this is a quote I'm gonna read. So for the last 15 years, Miss Hacker and her sister, who were natives of Canterbury, had been well-known objects of ridicule and amusement. On the death of their father, the two sisters lived together in a house in the suburbs of the city. They kept no servant, and although they were comfortably off, their habits were of most penurious description. Notwithstanding their age, they insisted upon dressing in the style of girls of 18 and presented such a ridiculous appearance that they became the laughingstock of the street boys. So it sounds like she had a tough time after their father passed. And it says she was also very quiet and very friendly with the Bassendorfs and gave them little trouble and lived very economically. Her dress, however, was made of the most fashionable kind, and even in the house she wore a bright sash around the waist. On Saturdays, she was in the habit of walking to Rotten Row. Although 66 years of age, she was active and invariably in the best of spirits. Her hair is described as being of a most luxuriant kind, and when curled in the morning, it resembled more than tresses of a girl of 16 than a lady of 66. Anyways, so Inspector Hagen organized a lineup in Toth Hill Fields Prison that included the Bassendorf, former maid Hannah Dobbs, and the pawnbroker he had bought the watch that had belonged to Miss Hacker before. And without hesitation, he was like, there's Hannah Dobbs. She seems suspicious. And took her, point her out.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So she had... Oh wait, this must be... Why did they format it like this? Curiously, she pawned the watch under the pseudonym Rosina Bassendorf, and what's more, the watch was not the only item of Matilda's that she had pawned under that name. She also pawned several items of clothing. Oh, okay, they're talking about, what's her name? Hannah Dobbs. Further to this, upon leaving the service of the Bassendorf's house, several items of clothing and eyeglasses, or an eyeglass, were left behind, that appear to belong to Matilda. And they were passed along until eventually items such as eyeglass were placed in the wicker tray that ended up in storage in the attic of 4 Euston Square. So the evidence began to heavily stack against Hannah Dobbs after they kept finding all these little items that she pawned that were used to belong to Matilda. There was also the other discovery of a cash box that was alleged to have been one that Miss Hacker kept her money and valuables. Mr. Bassendorf, being asked about this, stated that one day while Hannah Dobbs was in his service, he found his children playing with the cash box, of which the lid had been wrenched open. Mr. Bassendorf asked where this had come from, and Hannah said it was hers, and having lost the key, she had to break it open, and now it was useless. Mr. Bassendorf took it from the children, to whom Hannah had given it to them as a plaything, and put his own private documents in it, and put it in his wine cellar. And kind of once they started questioning Hannah Dobbs about all this, she was like, no, like, it wasn't me.
Yeah.
Like, she's like, I didn't do anything wrong, kind of thing. My voice is getting tired, can you tell?
Yeah.
It's a lot of talking. So after people began hearing about Hannah Dobbs and everything, the Bassendorfs began to leak out into the press, and to like nail down their suspicions as to the timings of the murders and motives of Hannah Dobbs, who had worked as a maid for the Bassendorfs. household up until September of 1878, 8 months before the body was uncovered in the cellar. Sorry, you need a drink of water. So they also found that Matilda Hacker had lodged in the house only until October of 1877, which meant that if Hannah Dobbs was the killer, she had to continue to work for the Bassendorf's house for almost a full year after the murder had taken place. And now the precise date of Matilda's death is unknown. It was thought to have been between the 10th and 15th of October, as dated letters sent from Matilda proved she was alive on the 10th. However, she apparently left the house in something of a rush on the 15th, never to be heard from again. I'm like trying to skip stuff because oh my god. Basically, I'm gonna try to summarize as best I can about this whole section. So basically, after Matilda Hacker left the Bassendorf's house on the 15th of October, and she was only seen by Hannah Dobbs, who settled her rent bill personally. After that, there was a stain that I think that Hannah found, or at least another maid found, on the carpet. And it was inspected by the police in a section, and they cut a section of it to send away for testing. And it was later found that, I think that it was blood. But, and then around that time, Mr. Bassendorf was also out of the house for the weekend, attending a bird shoot in Kent with a friend named Mr. Whiffling, whilst his wife, Miss Bassendorf, was out visiting the mother who lived nearby. So this gave the police room to place a time that the killer could take place, as on that Sunday, the only people at home in the Bassendorf household would have been Hannah and Matilda. So, okay, I don't need to read that. So, the trial of Hannah Dobbs first started in June of 1879. In the prosecution's opening statement, they said many cases of murder depend on circumstantial evidence, but such evidence might happen to be stronger and even more trustworthy than direct evidence.
That seems like the opposite now.
Yeah. So the jury heard of how the stain on the carpet that Hannah Dobbs had told Miss Bassendorf had come from a broken lamp. And then it was tested, and it was found that it was actually blood that was found on the carpet. I don't know. So it says that because of how the blood flow on the carpet, it was thought that maybe it came from the nose, eyes, or mouth, but no evidence of this had been found on the body. And then both Dr. Davis and the original doctor on the scene, Dr. Pepper. Oh, wow. Oh my god. Backed this point up, and when asked if there was any sign or trace of evidence that might suggest an unnatural death, they confirmed that there was not. Even the rope they suggested were more likely to have been from a hanging or from the body being tied around the neck after death and dragged to the cellar. Oh, I see. Okay, so they're basically saying that it wasn't a hanging, that they dragged the person by the neck or with a rope. Ooh, that. Anyways, this seems violent. They also questioned Miss Bassendorf, though her answers were very vague and not helpful at all. And on the second day of the trial, Hannah Dobbs, who was also on stand, or we'll call it, she was not permitted. She was not permitted to speak for herself at any point, as the laws at the time did not allow for suspects of murder to speak in their own defense. And Miss Bassendorf did confirm that the stain on the carpet was not there before Matilda Hacker's day, but was there after, though at what point she wasn't sure. Okay, I'm scrolling a lot because I don't even know that. So the trial, once the trial was eventually over. And they did say what evidence there was stronger against the Bassendorfs. So, because there was some involvement with the husband, Severin Bassendorf, and Hannah. Mm-hmm. So there was, like, that plus everything else kind of made the evidence stronger against the Bassendorfs. So once the trial was over, the jury stepped out to make their deliberation, and within 25 minutes they returned to deliver their verdict. On the evening of July 6th, oh my gosh, I can't say it, 1879, Hannah Dobbs was found not guilty of willful murder against Matilda Hacker. The trial was over, but there were still a lot of questions that had not been answered. And she wasn't happy because she was free to defend herself, but she was not pleased because, I don't know, they just didn't really let her talk, I don't think.
Oh, okay.
We're getting there.
You're fine.
So, though she had been acquitted of the charges of the murder, Hannah still had to serve her time for petty theft. And when she was released a few weeks later, she began working on her own form of revenge.
Oh, wow.
I know. I think this is where... Yeah, it talks about... So, George Purkis was a journalist. And I think he eventually ended up meeting up with Hannah to try, like, get information out of her and stuff like that. But as soon as she gave stuff, like, she told him stuff. But as soon as Mr. Bassendorf was aware of the publication, he attempted to carry out an injunction against Purkis to stop its publication. But the judge threw out the case, and it was published anyways. So, yeah, so this is like a little bit more backstory, I guess, if you were interested about the husband and Hannah. So, the entire time that she worked at the residence, Severin would visit her in her room, which also says that she shared with his children. So this man was really actually cheating on his wife in the same room as his children.
Oh my gosh.
Anyways. And she eventually got pregnant with his child.
Oh.
Yeah, they were like involved.
Yeah. Very nice.
And he was like, no, I'll cover you financially, but in order to cover up their affair, he talked her into seeing his younger brother, Peter, and to claim that the baby was his.
Oh, yikes.
Bring his brother in this. And yeah, so after her and Peter married and she was still pregnant with the baby, she carried on with the affair with Severin behind both the backs of Miss Bassendorf and Peter. What a gal.
Yeah.
So she went... Oh, okay, yeah. So she's telling all this to... What's his name? The journalist. I forgot.
Right.
Purkis.
Whatever.
What's his name?
The journalist.
Yeah. So she went on to tell of a previous lodger named Mr. Finlay, who had owned a revolver, and Severin Mr. Finlay had become close during his time at the Bassendorfs. Wait, what? Oh. I'm sorry. Maybe that was Peter telling this. I don't know. Anyway, it says, however, one day he simply up and vanished. Shortly after, Severin gave her a watch and chain that were too big and that she was supposed to had belonged to Finlay. And so she was like, where's Mr. Finlay? And that was a question which was asked at the trial but never answered. So they have no idea what happened to that man. But she got his watch out of it, I guess. And then it kind of goes on to tell her the story of how she kind of, what's the word I'm thinking of, interacted, I guess, with Matilda Hacker. So she was saying how she received the £5 note for rent from Matilda, and that she had taken it from a large sum of money she had hidden in her petticoat. So she took the note downstairs to get change, and she had told Severin Bassendorf of seeing the old lady's money. And then on the Sunday when the murder happened, or the supposed murder happened, she explained how she had visited Hampstead Heath all day with the Bassendorf children, even getting them photographed, a photograph which still exists. And then when she returned, that's when she had found that Matilda had gone away suddenly. And that's a few days later when Severin gave Hannah Matilda's watch and chain, which was broken, along with the money to repair it in exchange for the oversized man's watch she had given her previously. Oh, so he was just, like, giving her things to pawn? I just realized. I think.
Well, he said he'd take care of her.
I guess so. He was like, here, honey, I stole these for you, just go sell them.
Yeah.
So one day, while she was working at the Bassendorfs, she had gone in the cellar to fetch wood, and there she came across a small homeless boy sheltering in the corner. She went upstairs to tell the family. When they chased him out, an unnamed member of the group hit him with a poker, and the boy died later in the workshop.
Yikes.
And this is, I think, a quote from Hannah, says, I don't think he could have been more than 10 years old.
Oh, geez.
All his clothes were gathered together and burned at the workshop's fire.
Jeez.
And she later uncovered the body of Matilda Hacker in the same workshop, bundled in oilcloth. Another quote from her says, they said if I spoke of it, I would be implicated too, as I had pawned the old lady's things. I became a partner in the dreadful secret. Other feelings weighed with me. I had been a bad woman, but I had some of a woman's feelings. Scores of times I had thought I would go down and drown myself, and now I'm possessed with the same feeling. I stayed on in the house enduring the torments of hell. So, so the coal cellar, which had previously been unused, was now full of coal, amongst it she had found partial remains of the young boy, and she was told that the remainder had been fed to one of the lodger's pet dogs. Oh, that's gruesome. I didn't read that part before. Anyways, so things were, getting a little crazy, I guess, in the Bassendorf's household.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Okay, so I'm going to skip ahead to this. So in August of 1878, Hannah Dobbs returned home to Devon for 2 weeks, and upon her return to Euston Square, found herself being accused of theft by Miss Bassendorf. She was relieved of her position after serving a month's notice. While this left her out of work, she still found herself under the control of Severin Bassendorf, who was continuing on with her affair, paying for her to rent whilst looking for a new position. In an attempt to escape her nightmare, she told of how she stole money and pawned items to try and rid her reliance on Severin, so she could finally rid her life of his influence. And then she said, I was apprehended by police for the theft I had committed. I told them the truth, pleaded guilty, and was sentenced to 8 months imprisonment, which I richly deserved. And then kind of eventually once she had so she was afraid of telling of what she had witnessed at the Bassendorf household, with the boy and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But when she was questioned by Inspector Hagen concerning Matilda Hacker, she cooperated only so far as she answered what she was asked, and that she had not realized she was a suspect, nor that she would be standing trial for her murder until she arrived in court. And after the trial and her acquittal, she apparently told Inspector Hagen everything, only to be dismissed out of hand. And he said, "We don't want any of your lies." So this is why she told that journalist, all of this, because the inspector was he just thought she was lying about everything that had happened. So the pamphlet was published and everything like that. So the pamphlet was finished with a copy of Hannah Dobbs' handwriting, signed and dated, and confirming that the story was her own. If the Bassendorf's house's reputation had suffered until now, it had been nothing. And as a lodging house, it was simply laying ruins. Okay, so we're getting towards the end. So this is about the trial of Severin Bassendorf. So, both him and his wife put out a public statement denying everything that Hannah Dobbs had either expressed clearly or alluded to. And whilst Hagen released a statement saying only that investigations into the truth or falsehood of the allegations are being looked into. And the journalist, Perkis, in retaliation, he filed an allegation of perjury against Severin Bassendorf. Under oath, Severin Bassendorf had told the court during Hannah Dobbs' trial that he was having an affair with her. So he lied whilst under oath. So he went through a trial and everything like that about everything, and eventually it didn't go very well for him. And he eventually ended up... Sorry, I'm trying to find it. Oh, Hannah Dobbs had also stood as a witness and told everybody about the affair, and was detailed about it.
Right.
So he was eventually found guilty of perjury for lying to the court about his relationship with Hannah Dobbs, and he was given his sentence a week later, 12 months imprisonment with hard labor. And when he got out, he was still kind of mad at the journalist, but
right.
So yeah, they never solved the murder though of Matilda, even though there was a lot of speculation against the Bassendorf family, because I think just nobody really, some people believed Hannah, but not a lot of people did at the same time. Obviously the family didn't, or they were saying that she was lying and the inspector didn't believe her. And she was also technically kind of a thief, so people were
they were reluctant to believe her.
Yeah, and so, but after all of this, the lodging house reputation was ruined, and yeah, no one ever found the murderer, or who the murderer was, and Severin in 1909, at age 62, died of heart complications. But yeah, there's that long-winded story. So yeah, they never, I guess, ever found out. And she had run away, I think. She just disappeared at one point, so Peter was he later moved to Paris because he was I don't know where to find her, and she had changed her name and everything. But
wow, that's kind of wild.
Yeah, that's a lot more than I thought I wanted it to be. Your turn.
Okay, so mine, the only disclaimer of mine is it's a weird medical anomaly, so I have to explain some medical things. We'll see. I'm obviously not an expert on anything medical or anything, but we'll see. So this is called the Toxic Lady. So Gloria Ramirez was a woman from Riverside, California, who has been dubbed the Toxic Lady or Toxic Woman by media when several hospital workers became ill after being exposed to her body and her blood. She had been admitted to the emergency department because she was suffering from late-stage cervical cancer. And while being treated, several hospital workers had fainted. Other workers experienced symptoms such as shortness of breath and muscle spasms. 5 workers required hospitalizations, and 1 was in intensive care for 2 weeks. So this is just a short version. So in the end, she died from complications related to her cancer. And yeah, so there's several theories as to why this happened, but there's no official consensus, and it's still a matter of debate in the scientific community. Okay. So this is the emergency room visit. So the medical staff injected her with diazepam, midazolam, I don't know if I'm saying any of these right, lorazepam to sedate her. But she was responding really poorly to all the treatment. They tried to defibrillate her. And so they had to take her clothes off to defibrillate her. And they saw an oily sheen covering her body. And a lot of people smelled this fruity garlic-like odor that was coming from her mouth, but a lot of people just kind of disregarded it, and they weren't paying attention because they were just trying to get her back to life. So this registered nurse named Susan came, drew blood from her, but noticed that her blood smelled like ammonia, and there was little specks in it, that she noticed, I guess. Yeah, so she didn't notice that, but the medical resident, Julie Gorsinski, I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's really, sorry. But
sorry.
It's a manila colored particles floating in the blood. And so I guess cancer patients, a lot of times their blood smells like the chemicals of the cancer treatment that they're doing.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. Or it smells like something, but it doesn't smell like this ammonia. And apparently she hadn't started any sort of treatment yet. So when Kane, the nurse, fainted and was removed from the room, and then the medical resident started to feel nauseous, complaining. She left because she felt really lightheaded. And then when she left, she fainted. So, at first, like, people didn't really think anything of it because, like, in the ER, it happens. Like, a lot of nurses are working really long shifts. They forget to eat or drink.
Right.
And so they didn't really notice anything. But then the second person fainted. And then Maureen Welch, who's a respiratory therapist, passed out as well. So the staff was ordered to evacuate all emergency departments to the parking lot outside the hospital. And overall, 23 people became ill and 5 were hospitalized. So eventually, the skeleton crew, like the late night crew, stayed behind to stabilize her. But at 8:50 p.m., what date did I say what day it was? I think it's February 19th, 1994. After 45 minutes of CPR and defibrillation, she was pronounced dead from kidney failure due to her cancer. So there are several theories as to what happened, like why everyone became so ill when they were exposed to her. So the first one, this happened because the county health called California's health department, which put 2 scientists, Dr. Anna Marie Ozuria, I don't know, and Kristen Waller on the case. They interviewed 34 staff who've been working on the emergency department. They used a standardized questionnaire. They found that people who had developed symptoms such as loss of consciousness, shortness of breath, and muscle spasms tended to have certain things in common. People who had worked within 2 feet of Ramirez had handled her intravenous lines had been put at high risk, but other factors that correlated with the severe symptoms did not appear to match a scenario where which fumes were released. The survey found that it was women that were affected more often than the men. They all had blood tests done after the exposure, and there was nothing. So they thought that the hospital workers just suffered from mass hysteria, that they just, like, not necessarily made it up in their own head, but, like, essentially they did. Like, they themselves believed it to be real, but it wasn't anything. Right, so that's one theory, mass hysteria. But one of the medical residents said, denied it. She said that after the exposure, she was in intensive care for 2 weeks. She developed hepatitis and a vascular necrosis in her knees, which I don't know what that is. So this is the second theory, which is DMSO, this is like very scientific. It's some sort of like the way the chemicals reacted. So I'm really sorry if any of this is like incorrect or like I'm not saying it correctly because it's like medical jargon that I don't really understand. So the Forensic Science Center, led by Director Pat Grant from Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, found an abnormally large amount of dimethyl sulfone, I think that's how you say it, in her system. They theorized that she had been using DSMO, which is dimethyl sulfoxide, as an anti-inflammatory. So it's 1 oxygen atom away from dimethyl sulfone. The DSMO is, which is dimethyl sulfoxide. So they sound very similar. So she used it to cope with the pain of her cervical cancer. It will explain why her skin was covered in the oily sheen, why the fruity and garlicky smell was emanating from her mouth. The labs believe that the paramedics who gave her the oxygen masks on the way to the hospital, when they did that, it mixed with the DSMO, which caused oversaturation of the chemical. This led to it crystallizing and appearing as particles, such as those identified in the syringe by the nurse. Though the first part of the theory was tested and confirmed, it didn't explain how the harmless chemical ended up infecting 23 people. To explain how it happened, they came up with this theory, but it was never tested. So they hypothesized that the electric shocks from the defibrillator caused the dimethyl sulfone, which is the one that's was found in her system, to break down and mix with naturally present sulfite compounds in her body, potentially generating dimethyl sulfate, a potent chemical that can cause paralysis, delirium, convulsions, and damage to the heart, liver, kidneys, and central nervous system. This is so much like, they're all so similar words, and it's all medical. And I didn't go to medical school or study any sort of medicine. So though this team that supports this theory says it's possible, a lot of other scientists have claimed this to be impossible. One issue with this theory is that industrial workers have accidentally been exposed to dimethyl sulfate, do not experience these symptoms that the hospital staff had. Apparently, the first symptom to occur is crying, like they were just sprayed with tear gas, I guess.
Okay.
And it would have taken longer for the effects to have been felt. The coroner's office sided with this theory, and it claims to be the most likely cause of the event, but Gloria Ramirez's family denies that she ever used DSMO. The third theory is methylamine. So this is another theory. It was saying that she could have been exposed to precursor chemicals such as methylamine, which is used in the production of methamphetamine. So it's used in the production of methamphetamine. Riverside County, which is where she lives, was reported as one of the largest methamphetamine or just meth distribution points in the U.S. The theory posits that the hospital workers involved in the production of meth were smuggling precursor chemicals in IV bags, and that one had been given to Gloria as a mistake. So it's like a big conspiracy that they were, first of all, smuggling in this precursor drug, and then they accidentally gave it to her. The key support of that is that methamphetamine precursors have a distinct ammonia smell, which is why her blood might smell like that. And then they also said in the autopsy they found an abnormal amount of nicotine amide? I don't even know. It's something in her system, and that is a type of vitamin B3, which is commonly mixed with illegal drugs to add some sort of euphoria for the drugs. So, the biggest problem with this is it's a little outlandish that there would be all these conspiracies in the hospital, but it's one of the theories that they came up with. And then the final theory is the hospital's poor conditions. So in 1991, a poisonous gas was accidentally released from a sterilizer at the hospital, and 2 employees were hospitalized. During 1993, sewer gas was discovered in the ER. Then this led Gloria's family to believe that she died because of the hospital's poor conditions. Oddly, the coroner who performed her autopsy, Dan Cupido, claimed that she had not died of natural causes, but later changed his opinion. Stephanie Albright, an investigator from the coroner's office who was assigned to the case, committed suicide 1 month after the investigation. According to Caputo, she had been under a lot of pressure. So another, like, they think it's like a cover-up from the hospital's one theory, basically, because apparently the syringe that had her blood was thrown away accidentally. And the family filed a malpractice and wrongful death suit against the hospital because they were certain that the hospital was covering up what truly happened.
Right.
So that's all I have. This was really short. But there's just, they don't know what caused any of this.
Any of the mass sickness and stuff.
Yeah, so they don't know why all the hospital workers became sick from her body or her blood. There's several theories. There's it's like the mix of chemicals. There's also just like the theory that we don't know that much about the human body, I guess, and it could have created its own strange chemical by itself.
And like released it or something.
Yeah, just from like regular, like anything that could have happened to her, I guess, just because like the human body is strange, and so I don't know. And obviously I'm not a medical expert, so I can't like attest to
diagnose.
Yeah, I can't diagnose or attest to like the validity of like whether these chemical things are even possible. This is just what I researched.
Right.
So
it's interesting though, like
yeah,
be cool to learn more about, try to figure out what could have happened.
Yeah, so it's still like up for debate in the medical community, and I don't think that there was like a lot of information on her what's it called, autopsy. So yeah, that's all I have for mine was really short.
I guess it's okay that mine was so long. I didn't like how mine was too long for me personally. Like my voice was going near the middle of it, and I was like
I talk a lot, so I have good practice already, but
I didn't like talk to anyone today. My voice is just now starting to wake up.
Now that I'm working from home, I talk a lot because I just talk to like my husband all day, but like when I was working at office, sometimes I wouldn't talk until like I go have lunch with him. Like but normally I talk a lot. But that's fine. So yeah, that's both our mysteries. Thank you for listening. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter. I made a Facebook.
So I was saying, like, you made a lot more. Like I
added a few things. I don't know if people don't really use Facebook so much, but if you
it's
anymore.
there.
but if you really like Facebook, like I don't use it too much, but if you like it, I made one.
And there's like all the links on our Instagram page too. If you just click the link in the description or in the bio.
Yeah, it's in our Twitter bio too. So it has like where you can listen to us, and where you can follow us on different social medias. So thank you for listening, and we'll
see you guys next week.
Yeah.